Okay guys, here we go. So yesterday we worked a lot on the positive numbers, putting them on a number line, figuring out where they would go. So today we're going to talk about negative numbers and how they look on the number line, and then how they compare whenever we're talking about different, more complicated numbers, some of the rational and irrational numbers that we've talked about so far. Okay, so go ahead and copy down the objective. I can place negative numbers on the number line and compare complicated numbers. Copy that out for me. Complicated numbers. No, we haven't had in a while. We haven't had a math joke. So today is a math joke. Oh my gosh, it's Wednesday. What better day to have a math joke? Here it is. Why was the fraction worried about marrying the decimal? Because they might have to convert. That's a good one. That's a good one, especially because we've been doing converting fractions to decimals, and we'll do a little bit more of that today, sort of, maybe. Okay, so here we go. As we go on, okay, as we go on here, have the object down. Let's talk about negative numbers for a minute. Negative numbers. So when I look at negative numbers, okay, how do we list them, right? If I was going to talk about positive numbers, like we did yesterday, right, it'd be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, right? And the more further to the right you get, the bigger the numbers get. 100, whatever, right? Further left are smaller numbers. But whenever we go to the negative side, okay, now I got a negative number. Let's say 0 is here now. 1 and 2 are still over here, right? They're my biggest ones on my number line right now, 1 and 2. But on the left side of 0, we start listing the negative numbers. We start listing those integers. -1, -2. -3, -4, -5. Now when I list those numbers, I know that something that is -5, right? A -5 is smaller than -3, right? Which is smaller than 1. The smallest number up here is -5. So if it was +5, we might think it's the biggest number, but negative up here, it would be my smallest number, okay? All right. Let's keep going on with it then. Let's do something with it here, okay? Let's do like we did yesterday. Let me get rid of all this. Sorry, y'all. Let me get rid of all that. Okay, let's put some negative numbers up here. Here's 0. Let's make your number line with me. -1, -2, -3, -4. Make that number line with me. If you need to pause your video, pause it for me real quick. Okay, so now that I have my number line drawn, let's go ahead and take a look at it. So, now what? Let's start nice and easy. Let's make our first one. Here's my first point I want to put up there. Let's put -√9. Now, where would that go? That looks kind of funky. You might say it was an irrational number because it looks weird. But it's not, because what's the square root of 9? The square root of 9 simplified is just 3. And then that negative sign we just put on the outside, so that's just -3. So we're not going to put that on the number line. Go ahead and put that there. Okay? What about if I had -1.5? -1.5. Now, if I was doing it on the positive side, you would tell me that number goes between 1 and 2, right? $1.50, 1.5, in between 1 and 2. So don't change it and get all weird when you get to the negative side. It's still between 1 and 2. Think about what it would be as a positive, and then just put it on the negative side. So it's still between 1 and 2, just like it would be if it was on the positive side. Okay? Let's do one more. -7/8. Okay? Kind of a complicated fraction. It goes back to my joke. I could convert it to a decimal, but I don't really care that much as long as I'm close. I know that my numerator and denominator are really close together, and if that's the case, I know it's going to be close to 1. Right? But it's still less than 1 because I don't have a whole, so let's go ahead and put that right there. -7/8. Okay? That's how we put it on the number line. Just like that would be between 1 and 0 on the positive side, it's in between 1 and 0 on the negative side. Okay, let's move on. Here we go. Let's put these in order from least to greatest. All right? Least to greatest. I got a number line if you want to use it. If you don't, that's fine. But which one of these would be the most negative? I'm going to put some numbers up here for my number line just because. -3, -2, -1, 0. You can add them if you want. You don't have to. That's fine. But -2, where would that go? So negative 2 is on my number line already. There you go, just like that. Okay? We'll say how the number line helps here in just a second. I'm going to leave the 2 in the middle for right now. Negative 1.5, just like we said on the last one. It would go in between 1 and 2. So let's put it between 1 and 2. So we've done that one, we've done that one. Now let's take a look at these two. In yesterday's lesson, we talked about how if I have decimals and I want to compare, I want to put the same amount of zeros afterwards. So if I look at this, right, 0.80, add that 0, and I compare it to this number now. Now, when I'm working with negatives, I think, what about if it was positive and then do the opposite? What if it was positive and do the opposite? So this one I know, 80 is a whole lot closer to 1 than 8 is. So 80 would go close to 1 right here. That's negative 0.8. And then 8 cents on the positive side would just be a little bit more than 0. So this time it's just a little bit less than 0. So now I can put them in order from least to greatest, just reading off my number line. I got negative 2, negative 1.5, negative 0.8, and negative 0.08. I have a feeling that if I just told you to list them without showing you the number line or thinking about it, you might have had them in a different order. Okay? So pay attention to that when we go. All right, changing gears just a little bit, but not too much. All right? Ooh, this is tricky. Look at this now. Now I'm out of the negatives, but I have positives. I wanted to show you this example too. Okay? Now, as we said before, I want to get the numbers after the decimal point the same. So 0.2 is fine. Let's add a decimal point to this one to show which one's bigger. Okay, so that one right there would turn into 0.2 repeating 2-2. 2-2, she wears a pink tutu. You got it. All right? So now as I go to compare that to 0.2, if I add a 0, which one's going to be less? Is 20 less than 22? Yeah, so my least one is going to be 0.2. My next smallest one will be 0.2 repeating. What about over here now? I already have 2 decimal points here, so let's add 2 here. 0.44 would be that one if I wrote it out more. So which one's less? 42 or 44? 42. And then I'm left with 0.4 repeating. So see how those compare, guys? If it's repeating, it's a little bit bigger than just the normal decimal. Okay? All right, last thing for today. Last thing for today. Let's compare greater than and less than. Greater than and less than. All right? So, just kind of refresh your memory. Greater than. Greater than. If I say greater than, okay, if I hold up my fingers in front of my face, greater than looks like this. Less than looks like that. Okay? Greater than and less than. So if I look at these bottom two real quick, 12. Okay? 12. Is that greater than or less than 16? That's less than, right? Now what about negative 12? Negative 16. So think about what it would be positive and then do the opposite. Okay? So if it's negative 16, you don't want to owe me negative 16. So negative 12 is actually greater than negative 16. See how that's just the opposite there, guys? Just the opposite. Okay? Let's get a little more complicated. We're almost done, guys. Not too much more. What about this? Negative 8 and, square root of 8 and square root of 16. If I get rid of the square roots for just a second, okay, I know that this is going to be a little bit less than 3, right? Okay? 9 would be a little bit above. 2 would be a little bit below. So I know it's less than 3. Square root of 16 I know is equal to 4. Well, just look at the numbers, guys. If I have 8 and I have 16, is 8 less or greater than 16? 8's less than. Same thing here. The square root of 8 is going to be less than the square root of 16. Okay? Think about that, guys. Think about that. 2 more. Or 3 more. All right, what about this now, guys? Square root of 15. Well, the square root of 15, I know, is just a little bit less than the square root of 16. And more than the square root of 9. That's why these square roots are so important, guys, and why I focused on them so much. So I got 3 and 4, but I know it's a little bit less than 4. But in between 3, so I'm going to put let's just say 3.8 plus 5. That's my whole problem, right? All right, over here, what do I have? I have 9 plus 1, square root of 9. Square root of 9 is 3, plus 1, so I know this answer over here is 4. Well, I already know, look at this, guys. 3.8 and 5. That's going to be 8.8. So is 8.8 greater or less than 4? Greater than. Greater than. Okay? Let's move on. What about this one now? Square root of 17. So when you know your square roots, this makes your life so much easier. I know it's just a little bit more than 4 because it's a little bit above 16. So I'm just going to say it's 4. 4.1 plus 3. I add them together. 4 and 3 make 7. 7.1. Over here, what do I know? Square root of 9. We just did square root of 9, but 3 plus square root of 9, so I know that's 3. What's 3 plus 3? 6. So 7.1 greater or less than 6? Greater than. Okay? Let's see. One more. Now, we haven't worked a whole lot with pi, and we're going to talk about that. We talked about that yesterday when we talked about the edge elastic that we reviewed. Okay? But 2 pi. Well, I know that pi equals roughly 3.14. But remember, pi is an irrational number that goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. So that makes it irrational with an I. But for this sake, let's just go ahead and say that it's 2 times 3. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, right? Now, that's not exact, but I think for this problem, it'll get us close enough. What about over here? 3.14 plus 1. Well, that just makes it 4.14. And for today, we can really just say 6 and 4.14. Is that less or greater than? Is 6 greater or less than 4? 6 is greater than 4. Okay? All right, guys. Hope that wasn't too bad today. We will keep working on it and answer any questions that you have. All right? Remember that joke, fractions